Blood trickled down Gloria Jenkins' weathered cheek as Officer Mercer's knee pressed harder into her neck. At 78, she had survived wars that would haunt most men's nightmares. Now, on her own front lawn, she made a decision. Operation Shadow Fox would be activated one last time. Before we dive into this shocking story of injustice and hidden strength, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves respect, regardless of age or race, and subscribe to join our storytelling community. Now, what would you do if the people sworn to protect you became your oppressors? Let's find out how Gloria handles this impossible situation. Morning light filtered through lace curtains as Gloria Jenkins rose from her twin bed, joints protesting with familiar aches. At 78, her daily routine remained consistent. Stretching exercises learned decades ago, a modest breakfast, 12 toast and coffee, then tending to her prized roses in the front yard of her small bungalow in Westbrook, a predominantly white suburb of Charleston, South Carolina. To her neighbors, Gloria was simply the quiet elderly black woman who had moved to their community 5 years ago following her husband's death. Some appreciated her kindness, like the Moreno family next door, whose children she tutored in mathematics, or Mrs. Patterson across the street, who received homemade soup whenever her arthritis flared. Others, however, viewed her presence with thinly veiled suspicion. The neighborhood watch captain, Wayne Prescott, frequently drove past her home, sometimes parking across the street for hours. Gloria noticed everything, but pretended not to. She had spent a lifetime noticing while appearing oblivious. Today, as she carefully pruned her American Beauty roses, she observed Officer Derek Mercer's patrol car slow as it passed her house for the third time that morning. Tall with cropped blonde hair and perpetually narrowed eyes, Mercer had stopped her twice last month for routine checks while she walked home from the library. His partner, Officer Jason Colby, a stockier man with a ruddy complexion, usually remained in the vehicle, hand resting near his holster, as though an elderly woman might suddenly become a threat. Gloria's weathered hands, now spotted with age but still remarkably steady, clipped another stem with precision. These hands had once assembled explosives in complete darkness, had broken a man's neck in Saigon, had stitched wounds under enemy fire. Now they grew roses and baked cookies for the neighborhood children. The duality of her existence sometimes amused her. When she entered Thompson's grocery last Tuesday, the security guard had followed her through every aisle. When she attended town council meetings to discuss the new community center, her suggestions were politely acknowledged, then promptly ignored. When she reported suspicious activity near the abandoned warehouse by the river, the dispatcher had asked if she was confused about what she saw. Gloria was accustomed to being underestimated. In fact, she had built a legendary career upon it. As she finished with her gardening and headed inside, Gloria's mind drifted back to 1964 when a stern-faced military recruiter had eyed her skeptically in a nondescript government building. "We don't typically take your kind," he'd said, not specifying whether he meant women or black people, likely both. "But there's a new program, experimental, probably too difficult for you." She had simply nodded, hiding the fire behind her eyes. 3 months later, she was the only woman and the only black recruit still standing in a program that would eventually become known as Spectre, an elite unit that predated the formal integration of women into naval special warfare. Inside her modest home, behind a bookcase that swung outward when a particular volume of Langston Hughes was tilted, Gloria kept her true history. The hidden room contained shadow boxes of medals never publicly awarded, classified documents she wasn't technically supposed to have, and photographs showing a younger Gloria with 3 different presidents. None of these images had ever been published. As far as official records were concerned, Commander Gloria "Ghost" Jenkins had never existed. After making herself a cup of chamomile tea, Gloria checked her mailbox as she did every afternoon at precisely 3 o'clock. Among the usual advertisements and bills was a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper containing a message that made her blood run cold. "They're hunting Spectre ghosts. 3 down. You're next on their list. Watch your 6. Carson." Carson Bailey had been her communications specialist during the Angola operation in '82. If he was warning her, the threat was real. Gloria calmly tore the note into tiny pieces, flushed them down the toilet, and began mentally preparing for war. That night, as she oiled her grandmother's rocking chair on the front porch, Gloria watched Officer Mercer drive by again, this time stopping 2 houses down to chat with Wayne Prescott. Both men looked in her direction multiple times. She smiled and waved. They quickly looked away. The storm was coming, and Gloria Jenkins, known in classified circles as Phantom, was ready to weather it once more. 3 days after receiving Carson's warning, Gloria noticed the increased police presence in her neighborhood. Patrol cars circled her block every 45 minutes instead of the usual 2-hour intervals. Wayne Prescott had installed a new security camera that conveniently faced her property. The postal carrier had been replaced by someone who lingered too long at her mailbox. Gloria adapted her routine accordingly, appearing slightly more frail in public, using a cane she didn't need and making a show of squinting at street signs as though her vision was failing. The performance was calculated to reinforce every stereotype about elderly black women, while she gathered intelligence and prepared contingencies. Thursday afternoon found Gloria walking home from Pearson's Market with 2 modest grocery bags. She had deliberately purchased items that reinforced her cover: prune juice, blood pressure medication, a large print romance novel, and ingredients for a peach cobbler she planned to bring to the church social. As she turned onto Maple Street, just 3 blocks from her home, a police cruiser pulled alongside her. "Afternoon, ma'am," Officer Mercer called from the driver's window, his tone falsely pleasant. "Mind if we have a word with you?" Gloria adjusted her posture to appear slightly stooped and offered a confused smile. "Why, of course, officers. Is something wrong?" Officer Colby emerged from the passenger side, hand resting on his belt near his holster. "We've had reports of break-ins in the area, several homes burglarized in the past week." Gloria nodded with exaggerated concern. "Oh my, that's terrible. I hadn't heard." Officer Mercer exited the vehicle now, standing uncomfortably. "Close? Thing is, Mrs. Jenkins, the suspect description matches someone of your general appearance." Gloria's expression remained placid, but she mentally calculated the distance to both officers, noted Mercer's weight distribution favoring his right leg, observed Colby's slightly impaired mobility from what appeared to be a knee injury. "My appearance? You mean an elderly woman with groceries?" Mercer's jaw tightened. "Don't get smart with me. We're talking about a black suspect of medium height." Gloria raised an eyebrow. "That's quite a specific description that somehow matches half our community's black residents." Colby stepped closer. "We're going to need to see some identification and ask what's in those bags." Gloria noted that neither officer had activated their body cameras. "My ID is in my purse, officer, and these bags contain groceries, as you can see." She slowly reached for her handbag, movements deliberately measured. As she opened her purse, Mercer suddenly grabbed it from her hands. "I'll check that myself." The grocery bags tumbled from Gloria's arms as she was jostled. Eggs cracking on the sidewalk, apples rolling into the street. "Those were for my cobbler," Gloria said quietly, watching as Mercer dumped the contents of her purse onto the hood of the patrol car. Among her wallet, keys, tissues, and reading glasses tumbled a small metal tool that resembled a lockpick. In reality, it was a specialized device she used when arthritis made turning her house key difficult, but Gloria knew immediately how it would be perceived. "Well, well," Mercer said, holding up the tool. "What do we have here?" "Looks like burglary." "Equipment to me." From across the street, Wayne Prescott had emerged from his car, smartphone raised and recording. Other neighbors peered from windows or stood on porches, watching but not intervening. Gloria assessed her options. She could easily disarm both officers. Even at her age, her muscle memory and training would compensate for any physical limitations. But exposing her abilities would compromise her cover completely, potentially endangering her mission and the neighbors she had grown to care about. "That's a mobility aid for my arthritis, officer. My doctor prescribed it." Colby snorted. "Sure, it is. And I bet you've got a prescription for these too?" He held up her house keys, dangling them mockingly. "Turn around, hands behind your back." Gloria made a split-second decision. "I'd like to call my lawyer before any further action is taken." Mercer stepped forward, his face inches from hers. "You'll call whoever we say you can call after we process you downtown." When Gloria didn't immediately turn around, Mercer grabbed her arm roughly. The sudden movement triggered decades of combat training, and Gloria had to consciously suppress her instinct to counter the attack. Instead, she allowed herself to appear frightened and confused, her voice rising. "Please don't. Hurt me. I've done nothing wrong." Colby moved behind her, wrenching her arms back with unnecessary force as he cuffed her wrists. The metal bit painfully into her skin, deliberately fastened too tight. Gloria winced authentically. This pain was nothing compared to what she had endured in North Korea. "Gloria Jenkins, you're under arrest for possession of burglary tools and resisting arrest," Mercer announced loudly, playing to their audience of neighbors. As they led her toward the patrol car, Gloria caught sight of young Mateo Moreno watching wide-eyed from his front yard, his mother pulling him inside with a fearful expression. Gloria gave the boy a subtle nod, her eyes conveying a message. Watch and remember. This was no longer just about her survival or exposing whatever conspiracy Carson had warned about. This was now about justice in a community where some people were deemed suspicious simply for existing. As the patrol car door slammed shut behind her, Gloria noticed something that made her heart race momentarily. Officer Mercer was wearing a tie clip with a distinctive pattern she recognized immediately. The unofficial insignia of Project Harbinger, a classified operation connected to Spectre that had allegedly been shut down in 1989 after congressional investigations into ethical violations. Gloria closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. This was no coincidence. As the patrol car pulled away, she began mentally preparing for interrogation. Whatever game these officers were playing, they had no idea who they were really dealing with, and that would be their downfall. The interrogation room at Westbrook Police Station smelled of stale coffee and industrial cleaner. Gloria sat with perfect posture, despite the uncomfortable metal chair, her hands folded calmly on the scratched table before her. They had kept her waiting for 97 minutes precisely, a basic intimidation tactic she had both endured and employed countless times throughout her career. When the door finally opened, Officers Mercer and Colby entered, followed by an older white man, with captain's bars and a nameplate reading, "Warren Caldwell, Chief of Police." Gloria catalogued details with practiced efficiency. Caldwell's slight limp suggesting an old injury to his right hip, the way Mercer deferred to him with military-like respect, rather than merely professional courtesy, the outdated but expensive watch on Caldwell's wrist that didn't match his department's salary. "Mrs. Jenkins," Caldwell began, his southern drawl pronounced but not entirely authentic, "seems you've been causing trouble in our peaceful community." Gloria adopted the expression of a confused elderly woman. "There must be some mistake, sir. I was simply walking home with my groceries when these officers stopped me." Caldwell exchanged glances with Mercer before continuing. "We found a lockpick in your possession, and you resisted these officers' lawful commands." Gloria shook her head. "That device is for my arthritis. My doctor recommended it when I struggle with keys, and I didn't resist. I simply asked to call my lawyer, which I still haven't been permitted to do." Caldwell leaned forward, his voice dropping to a condescending tone one might use with a child. "Now, Mrs. Jenkins, at your age, it's normal to get confused about things. Maybe you forgot what that tool was really for. Maybe you've been entering homes when people are away, taking things that catch your eye." The implication was clear. They were attempting to gaslight her into a confession, or at minimum establish her as mentally incompetent. Gloria recognized the approach immediately. "I'm perfectly lucid, Chief Caldwell. I'd like to make my phone call now, as is my right." Caldwell straightened, irritation flashing across his features. "You'll get your call when we're finished here." As the chief spoke, Gloria's gaze drifted deliberately to the wall behind him, where several photographs were displayed. One showed the department's officers at what appeared to be a military charity fundraiser. Standing next to Caldwell was a face she hadn't seen in decades but would never forget. General Marcus Stone, former commander of Spectre operations from 1975 to 1983. dishonorably discharged after allegations of unauthorized black operations and civilian casualties. The connections snapped into place in her mind like puzzle pieces. General Stone's presence wasn't coincidental. Neither was the Harbinger tie clip, neither was her arrest. While the men continued questioning her, Gloria's mind raced back to 1968, to the day she was recruited into Spectre, the training facility hidden deep in Louisiana Bayou country. 27 candidates starting the program, only 9 completing it. She had been the only woman and the only black person in that final 9, earning the codename Phantom for her unprecedented ability to infiltrate secured locations without detection. The other graduates had names like Wraith and Spectre and Ghost, all chosen to reflect their particular talents. They had been America's shadows, sent to places where official military presence was denied, conducting operations that would never appear in any history book. As Gloria was ostensibly listening to Caldwell's continued questioning, she was actually identifying 5 potential escape routes from the room, noting the security camera's blind spots, calculating how quickly she could incapacitate all 3 men if necessary. But her mission now required patience, waiting for them to reveal more information before she acted. "Mrs. Jenkins, are you listening?" Caldwell's voice sharpened. "Maybe she's senile," Colby suggested, not bothering to lower his voice. "Should we call Adult Protective Services?" Gloria returned her focus to them, allowing a flash of indignation to show. "I'm neither deaf nor suffering from dementia, officer. I'm simply trying to understand why I've been detained for walking. Home with groceries." She paused, then added in a slightly quavering voice, "My blood pressure medication was in those groceries. I need to take it with lunch." It was a calculated move, establishing both a medical need and a time constraint that might pressure them. "Did you just see how these officers treated an innocent elderly woman?" Comment number 1. If you believe racial profiling has no place in our police departments. Type number 2 if you think Gloria should reveal her true identity right now. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support stories that shine a light on these important issues. What would you do if you were Gloria, trapped in an interrogation room with people who clearly have ulterior motives? Would you maintain your cover or fight back? Let's continue to see what this extraordinary woman does next. Through the two-way mirror, Detective Alicia Ramirez frowned as she watched the interrogation unfold. Something about this case felt wrong from the moment the booking report crossed her desk. An elderly woman arrested for possession of burglary tools. The supposed evidence was barely more than a specialized key turner available at any medical supply store. Now, watching Chief Caldwell's aggressive questioning, her suspicions deepened. "We ran your prints," Caldwell was saying, sliding a paper across the table. "Interesting results." Gloria glanced at the document without touching it. According to the report, her fingerprints matched those of Eleanor Williams, a 79-year-old woman with no criminal record whose only appearance in government databases was a Social Security application from 1959. Gloria maintained a neutral expression, though internally she was impressed. Eleanor Williams was indeed one of her cover identities, established decades ago and maintained through periodic documentation updates. The fact that this identity had survived digital migration of records was testament to the thoroughness of Spectre's operational security protocols. "That's my maiden name," Gloria replied smoothly. "I was Eleanor Williams before I married Thomas Jenkins in '62. He passed 5 years ago, God rest his soul." As she spoke, Gloria's mind flashed back to her first field mission after Spectre training. April 1969, deep in Viet Cong territory. She had been inserted alone, tasked with eliminating a double agent before he could compromise 3 separate American intelligence networks. The mission briefing had advised that she would be operating without backup in an area swarming with enemy forces. "Why send a woman?" she had asked her commander. "Because they'll never suspect you," came the reply. Gloria had completed that mission in 16 hours, extracted with the target's codebook and a bullet wound in her shoulder that she had stitched herself. The military had created 7 different cover identities for each Spectre operative, identities that were periodically exercised through documentation and occasional public appearances to maintain their viability. Eleanor Williams had been a nurse in Philadelphia. Margaret Turner had been a secretary in San Diego. Catherine Baker had been a librarian in Tulsa. Gloria Jenkins herself was technically a cover identity, though it had become her primary persona after retirement. Back in the interrogation room, Caldwell was growing visibly frustrated with her calm responses. "We'll be holding you until we can verify your identity and address these charges." He stood to leave, but paused when the door opened and Detective Ramirez entered. "Chief, could I have a word?" she asked, her tone professional but insistent. Ramirez was in her early 40s with intelligent eyes and the confident bearing of someone who had earned her position through competence rather than connections. Caldwell frowned but followed her outside, leaving Mercer and Colby to guard Gloria. Through the partially open door, Gloria could hear fragments of their conversation. "Sir, the warrant doesn't match. Procedural issues, potential lawsuit." Caldwell's responses were too quiet to discern, but his body language suggested annoyance. Gloria noted Ramirez's apparent concern and filed it away as potentially useful. When they returned, Ramirez accompanied them, introducing herself directly to Gloria. "Mrs. Jenkins, I'm Detective Ramirez. I have some additional questions, if you don't mind." Unlike the others, Ramirez pulled a chair alongside Gloria rather than sitting across from her in an oppositional stance. It was a subtle but significant difference in approach. Gloria decided to test the detective's intentions. "Will these questions help clear up this misunderstanding so I can go home?" Ramirez met her eyes. "That's my hope, yes." For the next 20 minutes, Ramirez asked detailed questions about Gloria's background, her move to Westbrook, her daily activities. Gloria provided carefully constructed answers that revealed tiny fragments of truth amidst her cover story. Discussing her late husband's military service gave her an opportunity to demonstrate knowledge of military protocols that a civilian spouse might reasonably know. Mentioning her volunteer work with veterans allowed her to reference certain historical operations without raising suspicion. Throughout the conversation, Gloria observed Ramirez taking note of these subtle cues, her expression thoughtful. When Mercer attempted to interrupt with more aggressive questioning, Ramirez firmly asserted her authority. "I've got this, officer." Gloria's strategic revelations were calculating. In intelligence operations, sometimes the best way to maintain a cover was to selectively reveal minor truths that could be verified, establishing credibility that protected the larger deception. As she spoke about her fictional husband's deployment during civil rights demonstrations in the 1960s, Gloria was actually drawing from her own classified mission. She had been assigned to protect several prominent civil rights leaders, disguised as a housekeeper in their hotels and meeting venues. She had thwarted 3 separate assassination attempts without any of the leaders ever knowing she was there. Phantom, living up to her code name. As the questioning continued, Gloria noticed Officer Mercer step outside to take a phone call. With her enhanced hearing, a skill honed through decades of surveillance work, she caught fragments of his conversation. "Yes, sir. The old Spectre asset is in custody. No, she hasn't recognized. Waiting for your arrival." The confirmation of her suspicions sent a surge of adrenaline through Gloria's system, which she carefully controlled through breathing techniques. Whatever conspiracy Carson had warned her about, it was larger than these local police officers. They were merely pawns in someone else's game. When Ramirez stepped out briefly to retrieve Gloria's personal effects inventory, Gloria turned to Officer Colby. "May I use the restroom, please? At my age, waiting isn't really an option." Colby looked annoyed but nodded, escorting her to a small bathroom near the interrogation rooms. Once inside, Gloria quickly examined the window, small but not too small for someone of her slender build. The lock was standard issue, easily defeated. From a nearly invisible compartment sewn into her bra, Gloria extracted a thin wire she always carried. Within seconds, she had the window unlocked. But rather than escape immediately, she flushed the toilet and washed her hands, buying time to consider her options. Escape now would alert them to her capabilities, but give her freedom to maneuver. Staying would provide more intelligence, but increase her risk. The decision crystallized when she heard new voices in the hallway, including one with the unmistakable cadence of military command. General Stone had arrived. Gloria silently lifted the window and slipped outside into the afternoon sun. The 6-foot drop from the bathroom window to the concrete below would challenge most 78-year-olds. Gloria landed with the practiced ease of someone whose body remembered decades of similar maneuvers, absorbing the impact through bent knees and a slight roll to protect her more fragile wrists and ankles. Age had diminished her physical capabilities, but disciplined daily exercise and muscle memory compensated significantly. Instead of fleeing the premises, Gloria made a strategic decision that would have shocked her former handlers. She remained on site, circling around to a blind spot between the building's HVAC system and a row of dumpsters. This position afforded a partial view of the station's main entrance while keeping her concealed from security cameras. The station would soon be in an uproar when they discovered her missing, but that chaos would create opportunities. Her immediate objective was not escape, but intelligence gathering. Something bigger than harassment of an elderly black woman was unfolding, something connected to her spectre past. Gloria waited patiently as a maintenance worker exited a side door, propping it slightly with a cigarette pack while he stepped away to take a call. The moment he turned his back, she slipped inside, adopting the slightly hunched posture and shuffling gait of a cleaning woman. She removed a blue maintenance smock from a nearby cart, pulling it over her clothes and picking up a feather duster as a prop. The disguise was basic but effective in its simplicity. Most people saw what they expected to see, especially when it came to maintenance staff and elderly black women. Both were often socially invisible. Gloria made her way methodically through the station's back corridors, mentally mapping the layout. Police radios crackled with reports of her disappearance, but the response seemed oddly muted, suggesting someone was keeping the situation contained. She located the records room through a combination of directional signage and observing staff movements. When a clerk exited with an armful of files, Gloria timed her approach perfectly, catching the door before it locked and slipping inside. The records room was empty, with rows of filing cabinets supplemented by a few computer workstations. Gloria moved directly to the nearest terminal, finding it conveniently logged in. Her technology skills had been continuously updated post-retirement through a classified program for former operatives deemed too valuable to lose. While most people her age struggled with smartphones, Gloria could hack basic security systems and navigate databases with practiced efficiency. A search for her alias yielded nothing unexpected, but when she expanded to search for other known Spectre operatives, disturbing information emerged. Thomas Reynolds, codename Wraith, died in a house fire 3 months ago. Michael Chen, code name Shadow, killed in an apparent robbery 2 weeks later. Diane Foster, codename Spectre, died of supposedly natural causes just 8 days ago. All 3 deaths had been investigated and quickly classified as non-suspicious by local authorities. All 3 cases had been reviewed by departments where Warren Caldwell had connections. Gloria felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room's aggressive air conditioning. Carson's warning had been accurate. Someone was systematically eliminating former Spectre operatives. As she continued searching, memories of her most famous mission surfaced. Beirut, 1982. American hostages held in a supposedly impenetrable compound. 3 previous rescue attempts had failed catastrophically. Gloria had infiltrated alone, moving through the city disguised as a local elderly woman. Over 3 days, she had mapped guard rotations, identified structural weaknesses, and located the hostages. On the 4th night, she had systematically disabled the security systems and eliminated 14 guards without firing a single shot or triggering any alarms. When the official rescue team arrived at the extraction point, they found all hostages already freed and waiting. Not one of the hostage-takers could describe how the compound had been breached. The mission earned her the nickname Phantom among the few who knew of her involvement. A noise from the hallway interrupted her search. Gloria quickly printed several key documents and cleared her search history from the computer. As footsteps approached, she positioned herself near a filing cabinet, feather duster in hand, appearing to clean as the door opened. Detective Ramirez entered, stopping short at the sight of Gloria. Their eyes met in a moment of mutual assessment. Neither woman spoke immediately. Gloria saw recognition in Ramirez's eyes, not of her disguise but of the situation itself. The detective closed the door behind her and spoke quietly. "I figured you'd try something like this. The bathroom window was too obvious." Gloria maintained her cleaning woman persona for a moment longer, then straightened, abandoning the pretense. "Yet you didn't sound the alarm." Ramirez crossed her arms. "Because something doesn't add up here. A supposedly routine arrest that brings the chief of police into an interrogation? A maintenance worker who conveniently propped a secure door? An external visitor who arrived with federal credentials but wouldn't identify his agency?" Gloria assessed Ramirez carefully before making a calculated decision. She held up the file she'd printed. 3 former government operatives dead in the past 3 months. All cases quickly closed despite suspicious circumstances. All connected to your Chief Caldwell. Ramirez's expression confirmed she had already suspected something similar. "Who are you really, Mrs. Jenkins?" Rather than answer directly, Gloria asked, "What do you know about Project Harbinger?" Before Ramirez could respond, the station's alarm system activated. A voice over the intercom announced, "Security breach in records." All available officers respond. Gloria knew she had seconds to decide, flee or surrender. Surprisingly, Ramirez made the decision for her. "They'll be here any moment. If you run, they'll shoot you and claim justification. If you stay, I can at least ensure you remain alive long enough to figure out what's happening." Gloria considered her options and recognized the tactical wisdom in Ramirez's assessment. She placed the feather duster on a nearby shelf and nodded. "Very well, Detective." When officers burst through the door moments later, they found Gloria standing calmly beside Detective Ramirez, hands raised in apparent surrender. The commotion drew Chief Caldwell and General Stone, the latter trying to remain in the background, but instantly recognizable to Gloria, despite the 30 years that had passed since their last encounter. As officers recuffed her, Gloria locked eyes briefly with Stone. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his features, quickly masked. He hadn't expected her to recognize him. That was his first mistake. As Gloria was led from the records room, the station's front doors opened, admitting 3 men in dark suits who flashed federal credentials. "This prisoner is now in federal custody," announced the lead agent, a tall man with a military bearing who introduced himself as Agent Thomas Blackwood. "We'll take it from here." The black SUV traveled for 37 minutes, making precisely 8 turns before stopping at what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Charleston. Gloria, handcuffed in the back seat between 2 stone-faced agents, had been mentally tracking their route, noting landmarks visible through the windows. Agent Blackwood drove in silence, occasionally checking the rearview mirror to watch her. Gloria noticed details about him that triggered her professional assessment. The precise way he held the steering wheel at 10 and 2, the regular scanning, pattern of his eyes checking mirrors, the subtle callus on his right index finger, consistent with frequent weapons training. This was no ordinary federal agent. Blackwood had received specialized tactical training. As they exited the vehicle, Gloria stumbled slightly, exaggerating the difficulty of movement for a woman her age. The performance bought her precious seconds to survey the surrounding area. 2 additional black SUVs parked nearby, a security camera mounted above the warehouse entrance, a guard station visible through a side window. "Move along, Mrs. Jenkins," Blackwood said, gripping her upper arm with calculated pressure. Not enough to leave marks, but sufficient to control her movement. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into a makeshift operations center. Computer workstations lined one wall, while tactical gear and weapons were arranged on another. Gloria counted 7 personnel, all with military bearing, all pretending not to stare at her. She was guided to a metal chair in the center of the room, positioned under a bright overhead light. Classic interrogation setup, designed to create psychological discomfort. Gloria's mind flashed back to August 1990, her final official mission before retirement. A domestic terrorist cell planning attacks on civilian targets in Washington, D.C. had been identified, but not located. Gloria, then 53, and supposedly past her operational prime, had volunteered for the infiltration. Using her age as cover, she had posed as a sympathetic landlady, renting rooms to 3 separate cell members without any knowing about the others. Over 4 months, she had mapped the entire network, identified their weapons caches, and documented their attack plans. When the FBI raid finally came, they found comprehensive intelligence waiting for them and the cell members already incapacitated. During that operation, she had worked briefly with a young soldier seconded from Special Forces, a quiet, efficient man whose movements reminded her strongly of Agent Blackwood. As Gloria sat under the harsh light, she recited a series of numbers that appeared to be her mumbling her social security number to herself. In reality, she was activating an emergency protocol that would alert remaining Spectre contacts through specific numerical patterns placed in public record searches. Anyone looking for those patterns would now know she had been compromised. The warehouse door opened, and General Marcus Stone entered, now in his 80s but still carrying himself with military authority. His hair had whitened, his face had weathered, but the cold calculation in his eyes remained unchanged. Behind him came Chief Caldwell, looking significantly less comfortable in these surroundings. "Commander Jenkins," Stone said, dispensing with pretense. "Or do you prefer Phantom these days?" Gloria maintained her confused elderly woman expression. "I'm afraid you have me confused with someone else, sir. My name is Gloria Jenkins. I've never been in the military." Stone laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "Still maintaining cover, I see. Admirable but unnecessary. We know exactly who you are, what you've done, and what you know." He nodded to Blackwood, who brought forward a laptop and turned it to face her. On screen was her classified service record, including missions that had never been officially acknowledged. "Agent Blackwood here is something of a protege of mine," Stone continued. "He's been quite helpful in locating former Spectre operatives." The implication hung in the air between them. Blackwood had been hunting her former colleagues. Gloria maintained her composure, analyzing the situation. Stone clearly wanted something from her, otherwise she would already be dead like the others. "What is this about, General? Spectre was decommissioned decades ago." Her question was a calculated risk, acknowledging her identity while seeking information. Stone smiled thinly. Project Harbinger was never officially decommissioned, merely relocated to private operation. He paced slowly in front of her. "The techniques we pioneered, the training we perfected, it was too valuable to abandon simply because some congressional committee got squeamish about methods." Gloria's mind raced through implications. Harbinger had been Spectre's most controversial initiative, focused on developing advanced interrogation and compliance techniques. It had been officially terminated after evidence emerged of testing on unwitting American citizens. "You've been training police departments," Gloria stated rather than asked, pieces falling into place, "creating private tactical units outside federal oversight." Stone's expression confirmed her theory. "America needs protection from threats both foreign and domestic. The bureaucrats tied our hands while enemies operate freely on our soil. We're simply leveling the playing field." Chief Caldwell stepped forward. "Elite tactical training for select departments across 5 states so far. No political oversight, no restrictive rules of engagement, no excessive concern for the rights of criminals and terrorists." The barely concealed racism in his tone made his definition of criminals and terrorists abundantly clear. "And you're eliminating Spectre operatives who might expose you," Gloria concluded. "Reynolds, Chen, Foster, who else?" Stone's eyes narrowed. "Only those who refuse to join us. We offered them the same opportunity we're offering you. Your skills, your knowledge of Harbinger protocols, they're still valuable. You could train a new generation." Gloria almost laughed at the absurdity. "You want me to help militarize police forces against American citizens? To teach them techniques developed for use against enemy combatants?" Stone leaned closer. "I want you to help protect this country from those who would destroy it from within. People who don't respect our values, our heritage." The racist subtext was unmistakable. Stone straightened, his tone hardening. "But first, we need the original Harbinger files. We know you took them when the program was officially terminated. Our reconstructed protocols are incomplete." And there it was, the real reason they had tracked her down. When Harbinger was shut down, Gloria had indeed been tasked with securing certain files, but she had never delivered them to the designated government repository. She had recognized their dangerous potential in the wrong hands. Now those wrong hands were reaching for them again. "I don't have those files," Gloria stated simply. Stone signaled to Blackwood, who brought forward a tablet showing surveillance photos of the Moreno family next door to Gloria's house, the Patterson children at their school, even Detective Ramirez entering her apartment building. "I think you do have them, Commander, and I think you'll retrieve them for us, or these people you've grown fond of will suffer the consequences of your stubbornness." Gloria allowed defeat to show on her face, her shoulders slumping. "The files are hidden at my house. I'll take you to them." Stone smiled, victorious. "I thought you might see reason." As they prepared to transport her back to Westbrook, Gloria caught Blackwood studying her with an unreadable expression. Something in his eyes suggested not the zealotry of Stone's other followers, but something more complex. Another piece to consider in the deadly chess game unfolding around her. Have you ever noticed how some people use prejudice and fear to justify their worst actions? Comment number 1. If you believe that militarizing police forces against citizens is a dangerous path, hit that like button if you're inspired by Gloria's courage in the face of threats, and subscribe to follow her story to its conclusion. What would you risk to protect your community from those abusing their power? Let's return to Gloria's home, where this extraordinary woman is about to show exactly what happens when you underestimate your opponent. The convoy of 3 black SUVs and a police cruiser arrived at Gloria's modest bungalow as evening shadows lengthened across Westbrook. Neighbors peered from behind curtains at the unusual procession, quickly retreating when armed men emerged. From the vehicles, Gloria, still handcuffed but now walking with the assistance of General Stone himself, noted Wayne Prescott filming from his front porch until Agent Blackwood directed another agent to secure the perimeter, sending the nosy neighbor scurrying inside. Stone maintained a firm grip on Gloria's arm, his fingers digging painfully into her bicep as he leaned close to whisper, "Any heroics and the Moreno family becomes an unfortunate statistic in tomorrow's news. Their youngest has asthma, correct? Tragic how children with respiratory conditions sometimes don't survive house fires." Gloria allowed genuine fear to show in her eyes, not for herself, but for the innocent family who had shown her nothing but kindness. As they guided her up the front walk, Gloria noticed a nondescript sedan parked 2 houses down, Detective Ramirez barely visible behind the wheel. The detective had followed them from the station, maintaining surveillance despite the obvious risk to her career and potentially her life. Gloria filed this information away as a possible resource. Inside her home, Stone immediately positioned agents at all exits, while Chief Caldwell began searching through her belongings with undisguised contempt, knocking books from shelves and upending furniture. "Careful," Gloria cautioned, her voice wavering convincingly. "Please don't damage my photographs." The plea was calculated, drawing attention to the numerous framed photos of her fictional family that decorated the living room walls. Each frame contained a hidden pressure sensor connected to her security system, which would activate if 5 specific frames were disturbed in the correct sequence. So far, Caldwell had inadvertently triggered 2. "The files," Stone demanded impatiently. "Where are they?" Gloria hunched her shoulders, the picture of a defeated elderly woman. "In the basement. There's a hidden compartment." As they descended the narrow stairs to her basement, Gloria's mind traveled back to her training days, specifically to a lecture she had delivered to younger Spectre recruits in 1978. "Your greatest weapon," she had told them, "is not your firearm or your physical strength, it's your opponent's prejudice. When they underestimate you because of your gender, your race, your age, they create blind spots in their defenses. Exploit those blind spots." The 20 young operatives had listened with varying degrees of skepticism until she had proceeded to disarm and incapacitate their instructor, a man twice her size, using his own assumptions about her capabilities against him. The basement was finished as a modest hobby room with a small workbench, gardening supplies, and bookshelves containing novels and photo albums. Gloria moved slowly toward a section of wood paneling on the far wall. "Behind here," she explained. "There's a hidden latch mechanism." Stone nodded to Blackwood, who stepped forward with his weapon drawn. "Show us slowly." Gloria's performance now became masterful, her hands trembling visibly as she fumbled with the panel, appearing frustrated with her own infirmity. "These old fingers don't work like they used to," she apologized, dropping her hand to steady herself. Against the workbench, apparently accidentally knocking over a jar of pencils. As she bent to retrieve them, she secretly activated a switch beneath the bench edge. "Let me do it," Stone snapped, pushing her aside to examine the panel himself. While attention focused on the wall, Gloria shifted her weight, positioning herself precisely where she needed to be for what would come next. "There's a sequence," she explained. "Press the top right corner, then bottom left, then center." As Stone followed her instructions, Gloria continued her explanation of the complex security mechanism, drawing all eyes to the panel. None of them noticed when she slid her foot 6 inches to the left, depressing a nearly invisible floor switch. "It should click when you've done it correctly," she added, silently counting down in her mind. 3, 2, 1. The panel slid open, revealing a small compartment containing what appeared to be an old military document case. Stone smiled triumphantly. "At last." He reached for the case, his attention completely focused on his prize. "I wouldn't do that," Gloria warned, but too late. The moment Stone's fingers touched the case, a blinding flash erupted from the compartment, accompanied by a deafening bang that reverberated through the confined space. A military-grade flashbang device, modified to activate upon touch, rather than timer, had been Gloria's first line of defense. In the 3 seconds of disorientation that followed, several things happened simultaneously. Gloria, who had been expecting the device, had closed her eyes and turned away at the crucial moment, protecting herself from the worst effects. Her handcuffs, which she had been quietly working on throughout the drive and subsequent search, clicked open, the lock picked using a wire extracted from her bra hours earlier, and most significantly, the basement's overhead sprinkler system activated, dousing everyone with a special chemical compound that appeared to be water but contained a mild topical anesthetic that would progressively numb exposed skin. Stone stumbled backward, temporarily blinded and deafened, colliding with Caldwell. Blackwood, better trained than the others, recovered fastest, raising his weapon toward where Gloria had been standing. But she was no longer there. Despite her 78 years, Gloria moved with the fluid efficiency of someone who had spent decades honing her body into a precision instrument. Age had slowed her, but strategy compensated for what time had taken. She targeted Blackwood first, recognizing him as the most immediate threat. A sweeping kick to the side of his knee dropped him to a kneeling position, followed by a precise strike to his carotid sinus that rendered him temporarily unconscious without causing permanent damage. The 2 other agents reached for their weapons, movements already sluggish from the compound raining down on them. Gloria had been building immunity to the compound through gradual exposure for years, while they received their first massive dose with no preparation. One agent managed to draw his gun before Gloria struck his wrist, at precisely the nerve point that caused involuntary muscle relaxation. The weapon clattered to the floor. The second agent lunged for her, but found himself grasping empty air as Gloria sidestepped with surprising agility, using his momentum to direct him into the wall. Chief Caldwell, still disoriented from the flashbang, fumbled for his service weapon, his movements uncoordinated. Gloria incapacitated him with a single, precise strike to his solar plexus, leaving him gasping on the floor. Throughout the engagement, Gloria had been careful to use only the minimum force necessary. These were not foreign adversaries, but American law enforcement, however corrupt. Permanent injury or death would complicate an already difficult situation. General Stone had recovered enough to realize what was happening. "Phantom," he snarled, drawing a concealed pistol from his ankle holster. Still remarkable after all these years. Gloria faced him calmly. "You always underestimated me, Marcus. First because I was a woman, then because I was black. Now because I'm old, you never learn." Stone's hand steadied as he aimed at her center mass. "I won't make that mistake again." Before he could fire, The basement door burst open, and Detective Ramirez appeared, her service weapon trained on stone. "Police, drop your weapon!" The momentary distraction was all Gloria needed. She executed a move taught only to the most elite Spectre operatives, striking Stone's arm at a precise point that triggered temporary paralysis from shoulder to fingertips. The general's gun fell from suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering to the floor. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," Stone spat at Ramirez as Gloria efficiently secured him with his own handcuffs. Ramirez kept her weapon trained on the subdued agents. "Actually, I do. I've been investigating police corruption in 3 states for 14 months as part of a federal task force. You just led me to the source." Outside, the commotion had drawn attention. Through the basement windows, Gloria could see neighbors gathering, smartphones recording the unusual activity. Among them was Wayne Prescott, his expression shocked as he witnessed Gloria efficiently subduing a much larger agent, who had begun to regain consciousness. "The cavalry won't save you," Stone sneered, nodding toward the gathering crowd. "My men are everywhere, including your precious neighborhood." As if on cue, 2 black SUVs screeched to a halt in front of Gloria's house. Men in tactical gear emerged, weapons drawn. "Told you," Stone said smugly. What happened next surprised even Gloria. Mrs. Patterson, her 70-year-old neighbor from across the street, stepped directly into the path of the approaching tactical team. Behind her came Mr. Johnson from the corner house and the Wilsons from 2 doors down, all elderly residents whom Gloria had befriended over the years, all now forming a human barrier between Stone's reinforcements and Gloria's home. "Stand." "Side," ordered the lead tactical officer. Mrs. Patterson crossed her arms. "I don't think so, young man. We've seen enough to know something's not right here." The standoff might have turned violent, if not for the sudden arrival of 3 official-looking vehicles bearing the insignia of Naval Special Warfare Command. From the lead vehicle emerged Commander Sarah Matthews, whose expression hardened as she surveyed the scene. "By order of the United States Navy, everyone stand down immediately." The authority in her voice brooked no argument. Gloria's emergency protocol had worked. Her Spectre alert had reached the few remaining legitimate contacts within the military structure, triggering an official response. As the naval personnel secured the scene, Gloria turned to Detective Ramirez. "Thank you for your assistance, Detective. I believe we have much to discuss." Ramirez holstered her weapon, her expression a mixture of shock and admiration. "Mrs. Jenkins, I think that's the understatement of the year." The next 48 hours unfolded in a whirlwind of debriefings, medical examinations, and security protocols. Gloria found herself in a secure conference room at the Charleston Naval Base, surrounded by a mixture of military intelligence officers, FBI counterterrorism specialists, and Justice Department officials. Her performance during the confrontation at her home had been remarkable, but not without cost. Her right shoulder throbbed from a strain sustained while subduing Blackwood, and decades-old scar tissue had been aggravated by the exertion. A military physician had examined her privately, his expression alternating between concern and amazement. "Commander Jenkins, your physical condition is extraordinary for your age, but you've pushed yourself beyond reasonable limits. You need rest and proper medical attention." Gloria had merely nodded, accepting the pain medication he offered while declining his recommendation for hospitalization. There wasn't time for weakness, not with Stone's network still largely intact and operational. As she sipped water from a paper cup, Gloria's mind drifted back to a classified facility in Northern Virginia, circa 2003. After her official retirement from active service, she had been invited to participate in a specialized training program designed for aging operatives. Project Longevity, they had called it, a comprehensive regimen of exercise, nutrition, and adaptive combat techniques specifically designed to extend the operational lifespan of valuable intelligence assets. For 3 years, Gloria had trained alongside a dozen other former operatives, all learning to compensate for diminishing speed and strength with enhanced strategy and precision. The program had been discontinued after budget cuts, but the benefits had remained with her through disciplined daily practice. Commander Matthews entered the conference room, interrupting Gloria's reflections. The preliminary sweep has identified 27 police departments potentially compromised by Stone's program, she reported, sliding a tablet across the table. We've also located financial records linking Stone to a private security corporation that appears to be the front for his operations. Gloria reviewed the information, recognizing several names among the corporation's board members, former military officials, dishonorably discharged but never prosecuted, now wielding influence through proxies and shell companies. Stone was always methodical, she commented. He would have contingencies in place. Matthews nodded grimly. We've already encountered resistance. 2 raids on training facilities were met with armed opposition. 3 agents wounded. The door opened again, admitting Detective Ramirez, now officially identified as FBI Special Agent Alicia Ramirez, on deep cover assignment investigating police corruption. Mrs. Jenkins, she acknowledged with a respectful nod. Or should I say Commander? Gloria offered a thin smile. Gloria will do fine, Agent Ramirez. My rank hasn't existed officially for decades. Ramirez took a seat across from her. We've been monitoring the media coverage. Your neighborhood captured quite a bit of footage before we could establish a perimeter. It's already trending on social media. Gloria had anticipated this complication. In an era of smartphones and instant uploads, maintaining complete operational security was nearly impossible. What's the narrative? She asked, already calculating potential responses. Mostly confusion, Ramirez replied. Clips showing an elderly black woman taking down armed men, interspersed with neighbors claiming police harassment. The department is attempting to frame it as a confused senior citizen interfering with a legitimate operation, but the footage contradicts their statement. Outside the conference room, Gloria could hear increased activity, urgent voices and hurried footsteps. Matthew's radio crackled with a security alert. We may have a problem, the commander announced, checking her tablet. Stone's transport vehicle was ambushed en route to Federal Holding. 2 marshals down, Stone's location unknown. Gloria wasn't surprised. The general's contingency planning had always been thorough. He'll head for a secondary command center, she stated with certainty. Somewhere with communications equipment to rally his remaining forces. Ramirez's phone buzzed with an incoming alert. Her expression darkened as she read the message. Westbrook Police Department just issued an emergency action order. They're conducting a security sweep of your neighborhood, claiming evidence of terrorist activity. Gloria understood immediately. They're going after my neighbors, anyone who witnessed what happened or supported me. The retaliation was predictable, but no less concerning. Innocent people were now targets because of their proximity to her. We need to move now, Gloria decided, standing despite the protest from her injured shoulder. Stone is operating according to Harbinger protocols. I know how he thinks, how he'll deploy his assets. Matthews appeared skeptical. With all due respect, Commander, you're not field operational anymore. We have tactical teams preparing to respond. Gloria fixed the younger woman with a steady gaze. Commander Matthews, I've forgotten more about tactical operations than your teams will ever know. And more importantly, I understand Stone's methodology better than anyone alive. You need me on site. After a tense discussion, a compromise was reached. Gloria would accompany a naval special warfare team in an advisory capacity only, with strict instructions to remain in the command vehicle. She agreed to the terms while mentally preparing to disregard them if circumstances required. As they prepared to deploy, Ramirez approached her privately. There's something else you should know, the FBI agent said quietly. When we searched Stone's personal effects, we found extensive files on all former Spectre operatives. Yours was marked Priority Alpha, with specific instructions for your capture or elimination. Ramirez hesitated before continuing. The directive included racial slurs and personal notations about making an example of you specifically because you were, in his words, an affirmative action mistake that should never have been allowed in the program. Gloria absorbed this information without visible reaction, though it confirmed suspicions she had harbored for decades. Stone's prejudice had always simmered beneath his professional demeanor. When they arrived at the staging area near Westbrook, the situation had already escalated. Corrupt officers from multiple jurisdictions had established checkpoints throughout. Gloria's neighborhood, detaining residents for questioning and conducting warrantless searches of homes. Through binoculars, Gloria observed Mrs. Patterson being roughly handled by officers as they confiscated her phone. The Moreno family was being held at gunpoint on their front lawn. "This ends now," Gloria stated, her voice carrying the authority of command, despite the decades since she had officially held rank. The Naval Special Warfare Commander, a seasoned operator named Rodriguez, had been briefed on Gloria's background and treated her with appropriate deference. "Ma'am, we have snipers positioned and 2 tactical teams ready to move on your order." Gloria assessed the situation with the cold calculation of an experienced strategist. "Stone will be watching, waiting for a military response. That's what he's prepared for." She pointed to a position on the tactical map. "He'll have observers here, here, and here, with communications jammers active in these sectors." Rodriguez verified her assessment with his own surveillance team, looking impressed when her predictions proved accurate. "Recommendations?" he asked. "Let me make a phone call first," Gloria replied, reaching for a secure line. 20 minutes later, as Stone's corrupted police force prepared to transport detained civilians to a secondary location, something unexpected happened. Every single front door in the neighborhood opened simultaneously. Elderly residents emerged from houses up and down the street, many using canes or walkers, all moving with slow but determined purpose toward the police checkpoints. "What the hell?" muttered one officer, raising his weapon uncertainly. "Stand." "Pack," shouted another, his voice betraying nervousness. Gloria watched from the command vehicle, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The senior citizen network she had quietly cultivated for years was now revealing its true purpose. Mr. Jacobson, a retired Army Ranger in his 70s. Mrs. Wilson, formerly with the Defense Intelligence Agency. Mr. Chen, who had never spoken of his time with Special Activities Division. Neighbors who had recognized something familiar in Gloria's eyes, who had formed a protective community without ever explicitly acknowledging their shared backgrounds. As the elderly residents continued their slow advance, media vans arrived, cameras capturing the surreal standoff between armed officers and senior citizens. From his hidden command post, Stone watched the same footage, his face contorted with fury as he recognized the strategic outmaneuvering. His forces faced an impossible public relations scenario: fire on unarmed elderly civilians on camera, or retreat. When Chief Caldwell arrived with police reinforcements, intending to support Stone's operation, he found himself instead surrounded by legitimate federal agents who had approached under cover of the civilian distraction. Gloria had coordinated a masterful operation, leveraging public visibility as tactical protection, while federal forces moved into position. Stone, watching his carefully constructed network crumbling, made a desperate final play. He emerged from his command post, a satellite phone in hand. "Stand down your forces," he ordered over an open channel to the federal commander, "or I activate sleeper units in 3 major cities, synchronized attacks, civilian targets, maximum casualties." Gloria, monitoring the communication, recognized the bluff immediately. Stone was employing a classic harbinger psychological tactic, one she herself had helped develop. She took the comm unit from Rodriguez. "Hello, Marcus," she said calmly. "Still resorting to the same old playbook, I see." There was a moment of startled silence before Stone responded. "Phantom, you always were too clever for your own good." Gloria's voice remained steady. "There are no sleeper units, Marcus. There never were. Harbinger never achieved the deep cover placements you claimed in your reports. I should know. I wrote the actual after-action assessments while you were taking credit with the Oversight Committee." The revelation hung in the air between them, decades of deception exposed in a single exchange. Stone's response was a string of racial epithets and threats, broadcast to all monitoring channels, permanently recording his true character for posterity. When federal agents finally apprehended him minutes later, the general was still raging against the black woman who had outmaneuvered him at every turn. As Gloria finally emerged from the command vehicle, residents of Westbrook gathered around. Her, some confused, others nodding with newfound understanding. The media swarmed, cameras capturing the moment a 78-year-old black woman was saluted by naval special warfare operators in full tactical gear. The images would become iconic in the coming days, sparking national conversations about racial profiling, police militarization, and the untold contributions of marginalized Americans to national security. Detective Ramirez approached through the crowd, now openly displaying her FBI credentials. "It's over," she confirmed. "Stone's network is being dismantled as we speak. You've ended a conspiracy that reached into dozens of police departments across the country." Gloria looked around at her neighborhood, at the faces of people who had witnessed her true capabilities after years of deliberate underestimation. "No, Agent Ramirez," she corrected gently. "We've only just begun the real work." 3 weeks after what media outlets had dubbed the Westbrook incident, Gloria Jenkins sat in a secure hearing room deep within the Pentagon, facing a semicircle of somber military officials and congressional representatives. The closed session had been convened to address both the immediate threat of Stone's network and the larger historical context of Spectre operations. Gloria had spent hours testifying about the corruption she had helped expose, carefully balancing national security, concerns against the need for accountability. "Commander Jenkins," began Senator Eleanor Hayes, chair of the Intelligence Oversight Committee, "your service to this country appears to have been extraordinary, yet officially non-existent. How do we reconcile this contradiction as we move forward?" Gloria considered her response carefully. "Senator, America has always had an uncomfortable relationship with its shadows. The operations I participated in were deemed necessary by the governments of their time, yet too sensitive to acknowledge. That secrecy created vulnerability to corruption, as General Stone's case demonstrates. Perhaps the lesson is that even our darkest capabilities require some form of transparent oversight." Outside the Pentagon, media coverage of the incident had evolved from sensationalist clips of an elderly woman subduing armed men to more substantive discussions of police militarization and racial profiling. Gloria's partial identity had been revealed through carefully managed official statements. A decorated military veteran subjected to discriminatory policing who had uncovered a dangerous conspiracy. The full extent of her Spectre involvement remained classified, but enough had been disclosed to transform her into a reluctant symbol of both the systemic problems and potential solutions in American law enforcement. Back in Westbrook, the community was still processing the revelations about their unassuming neighbor. The police department had been placed under federal supervision pending a complete investigation, with Chief Caldwell and Officers Mercer and Colby facing multiple charges, including civil rights violations, false imprisonment, and conspiracy. Wayne Prescott had attempted to capitalize on his footage of the incident with sensationalist interviews, only to find himself implicated in the harassment campaign against Gloria through his many false reports to police. Detective Ramirez, her deep cover assignment now concluded, had been appointed interim police chief with a mandate to implement comprehensive reforms. Her first official act had been to establish a civilian oversight board that included representatives from all demographics within Westbrook, with Gloria unanimously selected as chairperson. At the conclusion of her Pentagon testimony, Gloria was escorted to a smaller conference room where General Diane Mitchell, the highest-ranking woman in Special Operations Command, waited with a polished wooden box. "Commander Jenkins," Mitchell began formally, "on behalf of a grateful nation, I present these commendations, long classified but never forgotten." Inside the box lay medals Gloria had earned decades ago but never received: a Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, the Intelligence Star, and numerous campaign medals from conflicts America had never officially entered. These were authorized by 3 different presidents, Mitchell explained, but security protocols prevented their award at the time of service. Gloria accepted the box with mixed emotions. Recognition was gratifying after decades of invisibility, but medals seemed hollow compensation for the years of additional discrimination she had endured within the very institution now honoring her. "Thank you, General," she said simply. "I trust similar recognition is being arranged for other Spectre operatives who served honorably." Mitchell nodded. "Those still living, yes, and posthumous honors for those who aren't." The following day, Gloria returned to Westbrook to find her modest bungalow repaired and secured by military engineers. Neighbors greeted her with new respect, some apologetic for their prior suspicions, others simply grateful for her protection. The Moreno family had prepared a welcome home dinner, which Gloria accepted with genuine appreciation. Their kindness mattered more to her than any official recognition. As life gradually established a new normal, Gloria found herself adapting to a different kind of mission. Rather than fading back into anonymity, she embraced a carefully calibrated public role. With the protection of her partial official recognition, she established a community education program that combined practical civil rights knowledge with self-defense training for vulnerable populations. Twice weekly, Gloria taught neighborhood youth about their constitutional protections during police encounters, followed by basic self-protection techniques adapted from her military training. Power comes in many forms, she explained to her students. Knowledge of your rights is power. Community solidarity is power. Physical capability is power. Together, they form a shield against injustice. The program quickly expanded beyond Westbrook as neighboring communities requested similar training. With the assistance of other retired military personnel from her senior network, Gloria developed a curriculum that was soon being implemented in community centers across South Carolina. Detective Ramirez, now permanently appointed as Westbrook's police chief, became an unexpected ally in these efforts. Together, they created joint training sessions where officers and civilians practiced de-escalation techniques and built mutual understanding. The initiative became a model studied by police reformers nationwide. 6 months after the incident, Gloria received a visit from a familiar face. Agent Blackwood, now revealed as an undercover FBI operative who had infiltrated Stone's organization, arrived with both an apology and a job offer. The Bureau is establishing a new division focused on preventing police militarization and identifying extremist infiltration of law enforcement, he explained. We need advisors with your unique perspective and experience. Gloria considered the proposal. I'm 78 years old, Agent Blackwood, well past standard recruitment age. Blackwood smiled. Age doesn't seem to have limited your effectiveness, Commander. Besides, we're not asking you to kick down doors anymore. We need your mind, your experience, and your moral compass. After careful consideration, Gloria accepted a part-time consulting role that allowed her to continue her community work while contributing to systemic reform at the national level. Her first assignment was helping develop screening protocols to identify potentially dangerous candidates before they entered police academies. 1 year to the day after her arrest, Gloria stood before the newly established Westbrook Community Justice Center, preparing to cut the ceremonial ribbon. Beside her stood Chief Ramirez, Mayor Patterson, formerly Mrs. Patterson from across the street, inspired to run for office after the incident, and a diverse group of community leaders who had worked together to transform their local justice system. As cameras flashed and the crowd applauded, Gloria reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Her life had been defined by shadows, by operating in spaces where she was underestimated or invisible. That invisibility had been both tactical advantage and personal burden, allowing her to serve with extraordinary effectiveness while denying her the recognition and respect she deserved. Now, in the final chapter of her remarkable life, she had stepped into the light, transforming decades of painful experience into a force for positive change. Later that evening, as Gloria sat on her front porch watching neighborhood children play freely without the ominous presence of patrol cars, she felt a deep satisfaction that transcended any medal or official commendation. The true measure of her service wasn't in classified missions or covert operations, but in this, a community where people of all backgrounds could live with dignity and justice, protected by systems designed to serve rather than oppress. As dusk settled over Westbrook, Gloria Jenkins, once known only as Phantom, was finally visible, finally whole, finally home. What would you do if you discovered someone like Gloria in your community? Would you recognize the strength and wisdom beneath the surface, or make assumptions based on age and appearance? Comment below with your thoughts on how we can all learn to see beyond our prejudices If this story of courage and justice in the face of discrimination moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives that challenge us to be better. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that heroes come in all forms and that it's never too late to stand against injustice. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and remember, the most powerful people in any room are often those we've been taught to overlook. Gloria Jenkins's story reveals powerful truths about prejudice and strength in American society. It demonstrates how systemic racism and ageism create dangerous blind spots in our institutions, allowing corruption to flourish while dismissing the capabilities and dignity of marginalized individuals. Gloria's journey shows that true heroism often exists in those society overlooks. The elderly black woman dismissed by her neighbors and targeted by police was actually their greatest protector. This narrative challenges us to question our assumptions about who deserves respect and recognition. It highlights how discrimination creates vulnerabilities in our communities and security systems when we elevate certain voices while silencing others based on race, age, or gender. Gloria's story also emphasizes the danger of militarizing police forces without proper oversight and accountability, especially when prejudice influences who is deemed a threat. The corruption she exposed represents real concerns about how power can be abused when wielded through a lens of bias. Perhaps most importantly, this story reminds us that change requires both individual courage and community solidarity. Gloria succeeded not through violence, but by building alliances across generations and backgrounds, ultimately creating systems of justice that served everyone equitably. The lesson is clear. Our safety depends not on weapons or force, but on recognizing the humanity and potential in every person, regardless of appearance or background. True security comes from justice applied equally to all. What assumptions might you be making about the people in your community based solely on their appearance? Have you ever witnessed someone being underestimated because of their race, age, or gender? Comment below with a time when you misjudged someone or saw someone else being misjudged. If Gloria's fight against discrimination and corruption inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that challenge us to examine our biases and stand up for justice. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes come in unexpected packages and that it's never too late to make a difference. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Gloria's remarkable story. May we all have the courage to see beyond stereotypes and the strength to stand against injustice wherever we find it.